Good morning, Mount Scott friends. Mrs. Bishop here, and it is the week of April 19th. It looks like we're going to have still some good weather for the most of the week, but then Saturday and Sunday it might be a little bit rainy. So I hope you all had a beautiful weekend, and I love this background here. This is actually in one of our classrooms here at Mount Scott that I'm actually in as well, and I just wanted to share this because it's so nice outside, and Mrs. Bishop loves the sun. So this week, friends, I am going to be continuing with our Serendipity series, and am going to be reading the Morgan series that you may have recognized. Remember, we read, for those of you from last year, I read Morgan and you last year. So I might read that again next weekend, just so you guys have that idea. But this week, friends, I'm going to be reading about it says here you can see Morgan Morning. That's interesting. And then Morgan and Me. Remember, these are written by Stephen Cosgrove and illustrated by Robin James. Now, something very exciting, friends, is I actually sent an email to Stephen Cosgrove. So remember, these have been written since I was a little girl. They started in 1982, I want to say, and he responded back. We actually chatted on the phone on Friday. He lives in Arizona, and he is visiting in Florida right now. But he has agreed, friends, to come and do a virtual Zoom with us. So I haven't figured out how we're going to do that. It may not be this year. We might do it when things are back to normal next year. So here we go. Morgan Morning. And again, it's a Serendipity book. And there's always a dedication. And it says, dedicated to the spirit and the being of a horse called Morgan. May he live forever in the enchanted island of Robin's mind. Now remember, Robin is the one who illustrates these books. Oh, what a beautiful waterfall. All right, here we go, friends. Far beyond tomorrow lies an emerald island where all things magical and real live together in perfect harmony. An island where the sun and the moon come together to paint the sky the most amazing colors and hues. An island of bright and beautiful tomorrows. At the very center of the island is a crystal glade called the Meadows of Morning. The glade is surrounded on all sides by tall and magnificent mountains of morning. The only way in or out of the Meadow of Morning is along a narrow, twisting trail that follows the river through the mountains. It is here, protected from all harm, that the creatures from all over the island come to give birth to their young. Mothers of every description, those with feathers or fur, long legs or wings, come to this quiet sanctuary to give birth to their babies. It was in this early spring, when the mountains were shedding their mantles of snow, that a young colt was born in the deep grasses of the meadow. His mother labored through the night. Just as the sun was peeking over the mountains, Morgan was born into the world. He lay for a while, then stood on wobbly, shaky legs and gazed at all the wanderers around him. He blinked his eyes in disbelief as the shadows fell away and all of nature looked at him. Step by step, with his small tail swishing back and forth in nervous anticipation, he explored bits and pieces of the meadow while his mother slept in the warm spring sunlight. With each step, Morgan became a little more confident until he was walking without hardly falling at all. Day by day his strength grew, and so did his curiosity. Occasionally he would take off to chase a butterfly or bee, and his mother would have to nicker for him to come back. One day, Morgan followed some squirrels across the meadow to their nest in the wide, spreading oak. He was so intent on watching them gather nuts and berries that he didn't hear his mother's call. Finally, when his curiosity was satisfied, he walked back to where his mother was neighing and waiting impatiently. "Morgan," she said, as she nipped him on his ear, "someday your curiosity is going to maybe get you in trouble. From now on, you are to stay by my side at all times. Do you understand?" Morgan dropped his head and muttered, "Yes, Mom." And for the rest of the day, he stayed right at her side. But it wasn't much fun at all. The next day, the sunlight broke crisply on the meadow of morning, and all the creatures, babies and mothers alike, rubbed the sleep from their eyes and went scurrying about the meadow, searching for food. Morgan was no exception as he nibbled on the tender grasses that grew in the glade. For the longest time, he stayed at his mother's side, as he had been told to do. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 5 raccoons raced by with their tails sticking straight in the air. And without a thought or a glance back at his mother, Morgan raced after them. He didn't know where they were going. He just thought it looked like fun. He followed their bushy tails through the meadow and onto the path that ran beside the river between the feathered ferns and golden green moss. On and on they raced, 5 little raccoons and Morgan, zipping down the twisted trail. He had never had so much fun nor seen so many new things in his life. As they raced on, the river became swifter, and a roaring sound filled the air. Morgan rounded a twisted corner in the path, but the raccoons had disappeared, as though they had just vanished into thin air. He looked up and down the trail, but there was no sign of his furry friends. Then, on the other side of the river, at the very edge of the cascading waterfall, Morgan saw the raccoons skipping from rock to rock across the raging river. Without thought for his safety, Morgan began walking on the stones set in the river. He was almost to the middle when he looked off to his side and saw the cascading waterfall. It went down and down 100 feet or so and crashed with a large roar at the bottom. He scrambled quickly to the next rock, but as fate would have it, his front hoof slipped on a bit of moss. Suddenly, Morgan found himself floating helplessly in the river as he was swept closer and closer to the brink of the waterfall. "Mother!" he neighed with all his strength. But it was to no avail, and he was carried over the edge of the waterfall. Morgan fell for what seemed like an eternity, with water pouring all around him, and he hit a boulder, bounced off and splashed into the cold, deep pool at the bottom. His leg hurt so much, but with all his strength in his small body, he pulled himself onto the sandy beach at the base of the falls. He lay there for a time, catching his breath, and then tried to stand. As soon as he got to his feet, the leg that had hit the rock buckled, and Morgan fell to the sand again. With tears streaming from his eyes, he suddenly realized that he was in more trouble than he had ever thought he could be. With a few excited squeaks, the raccoons, who had been watching from high above, raced back to the meadow to find Morgan's mother. His mother, along with all the other mothers and their babies, came and stood silently above the pool and the waterfall. There was no way for any of them to get down to help him, let alone try to help him back up the waterfall. Morgan's mother choked back a sob and realized there was nothing that she could do, and with tears streaming from her face, she had to walk silently away from the falls with all the other creatures. Morgan neighed softly and said, "I love you, Mother, and I understand." All alone now, the little colt lay in the cold sand with only the roar of the mighty waterfall to console him. He must be sad and scared, huh? The damp, dark night settled about him as he slept fitfully, dreaming of other times and other places. Dreams of golden sunshine and brightly colored flowers. Dreams of running through the meadow of clover. Dreams always ending the same, falling through the mist of the falls, and then to awaken and find that he was still alone at the bottom of the waterfall. As the heavens began to brighten, the morning star lifted itself from the edge of the earth and began to rise majestically into the sky. The star rose and rose until suddenly it paused in mid-flight, and a bright beacon of light shined down to the colt lying on the ground. Morgan had just begun to blink his eye in wonder when a booming voice called out to him, "Who are you, little horse, and why do you sleep on the cold, cold sand?" "My name is Morgan," he said, "and I'm here because I didn't listen to my mother and foolishly fell from the rocks. Now I'm waiting, for no one can help me." And with that, he began to cry. "Morgan," said the morning star, "we can help you, but there are conditions and rules." "I'll do anything at all, anything," cried Morgan. "Listen first, little horse, and then decide. If we save you, and we will if you want, you will be banished from all others of your kind forevermore. Never more will you be able to nuzzle next to your mother or her kind. For in order to save you, we must magically transform you into a unicorn. And thereafter, because you are magic, you must live in the land of dreams and make-believe. And as a sign of your pledge, you will forever wear on your head a horn cast of purity and twilight wonder." Morgan thought of a gentler time when he played in the meadow and nuzzled his mother and others of his kind. But he knew that his only hope of living was to accept. And with a sad lump in his throat and a deep sigh of regret, he agreed. And he became a unicorn. The bright beam of the morning star changed to all colors of the rainbow, and the air sparkled with crystal delight, and Morgan suddenly was able to stand up. His leg was healed, and in a burst of golden light, the horn was affixed to his head for all eternity. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the morning star faded from the sight, and Morgan, the unicorn, was left alone. He slowly began to follow the river down to the meadowlands below, but he turned once more to look at the waterfall, and there stood his mother. "Goodbye, mother, I will always love you," he neighed softly to the wind. And with a tearful eye, but a heart filled with hope for new adventure, Morgan turned and walked away. Into this life, Morgan was born to live as a unicorn. That end. Oh, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to reading you Morgan and Me next. What did you like about that story? I'd be interested to know if you want to answer. It's not necessary, only if you want to, friends. Have a great day.